The unexpected assignment. Captain Jackson Reed stared at the transfer orders on his datapad, the Terran Space Force insignia pulsing in the corner of the screen. 6 months ago, he'd been commanding an elite tactical squad. Now, after questioning orders that would have resulted in civilian casualties, he found himself reassigned to a mysterious vessel called the Celestial Vanguard. "This has to be some kind of joke," he muttered, running his hand through his short dark hair. His apartment's AI chimed softly. "Captain Reed, your transport has arrived." Jackson glanced around his sparse quarters. After 15 years of service, he still lived like a man ready to deploy at a moment's notice. Old habits. He grabbed his duffel bag already packed with essentials and slipped on his tactical vest. "Tell them I'll be down in 3 minutes." The transport was sleek and unmarked, its pilots silent as they ascended through Earth's atmosphere. Jackson watched his home planet shrink beneath them, the familiar blues and greens fading into the vastness of space. "Where exactly are we headed?" he finally asked. "Orbital Station Omega, sir," the pilot answered curtly. "Your ship is docked there." As they approached the station, Jackson spotted it immediately. Unlike any Terran vessel he'd ever seen, the Celestial Vanguard gleamed against the darkness of space. Its hull was smooth and elegant with flowing lines that suggested both speed and power. It was smaller than a standard cruiser but larger than a corvette, with what appeared to be advanced weapon systems integrated seamlessly into its design. "That's my ship?" he asked, unable to hide his surprise. The pilot nodded. "Yes, sir. Recently, acquired by the TSF." The hesitation in the pilot's voice raised Jackson's suspicions. "Acquired how?" "I believe your briefing will cover that, sir." As they docked with the station, Jackson was met by Admiral Donovan, a stern man he'd encountered only twice before during classified debriefings. "Captain Reed," the Admiral greeted him with a firm handshake. "Thank you for responding so promptly." "Didn't realize I had a choice, sir," Jackson replied, his tone carefully neutral. Donovan's smile was thin. "Walk with me." They moved through the station's corridors, the Admiral's pace brisk and purposeful. "I'll be direct, Captain. The Celestial Vanguard is not a TSF vessel. It's a captured ship of unknown origin that appeared in our space 3 weeks ago. Advanced technology, weapon systems we've never seen before." Jackson kept his expression neutral. "And you're giving command to a recently demoted officer because you're the best tactical mind we have who isn't currently commanding a vessel. And because your demotion was political, not performance-based." Donovan stopped walking and faced him. "And because this mission requires someone who can think independently when necessary." There it was. They needed someone expendable but capable. Someone who could be disavowed if things went south. "What's the mission?" Jackson asked. "Determine the ship's capabilities, origin, and whether it represents a threat or an opportunity." Donovan hesitated. "There's one more thing. The ship came with a crew." Jackson raised an eyebrow. "Prisoners?" "Not exactly. 5 female humanoid aliens. They appear to be warriors of some kind based on their physiology and the combat gear we found aboard. They've been cooperative but communication has been limited despite our translation technology." "And they're still aboard?" Donovan nodded. "They refuse to leave the ship. They seem to be waiting for something, or someone. We believe they may respond to a command structure they recognize." Jackson understood now. They wanted him to take command not just of the ship but of these alien warriors. To gain their trust and, by extension, access to whatever knowledge and technology they possessed. "When do I meet them?" he asked. "Now," Donovan replied. "They're expecting you." The boarding tube connected the station to the Celestial Vanguard with a soft pneumatic hiss. Jackson stepped through, immediately noting the difference in the atmosphere, slightly warmer with a faint scent like honey and something metallic. The ship's interior was unlike any vessel he'd served on. The corridors were wider, the lighting softer but more efficient, everything seemed designed for both functionality and aesthetic appeal, a concept rarely prioritized in military vessels. Admiral Donovan led him to what appeared to be the bridge. The moment the door slid open, Jackson understood why they'd chosen him for this assignment. 5 female humanoid aliens stood in formation, each strikingly different yet similar in their stance. Warriors, without question. They wore form-fitting battle suits that resembled armor but moved like second skin, each in colors that matched their unique appearances. The one in front had skin the color of burnished copper and flowing hair that resembled liquid amber. To her right stood a woman with pearl-white skin and silver hair, her posture calm and centered. Beside her was a warrior with obsidian skin that seemed to absorb light, her expression confident. The fourth had skin that shimmered with an iridescent quality, shifting between blue and purple. The fifth had skin the color of jade, her stance rigid and alert. They all turned to face him simultaneously, their eyes, in various exotic colors, fixing on him with unnerving intensity. The copper-skinned woman stepped forward, her movements fluid and powerful. She spoke, her voice melodic yet commanding, in a language Jackson didn't understand. Then she pressed something on her wrist, and a translation followed. "You are the new battlemaster. You have come to claim the celestial vanguard." Jackson glanced at Donovan, who gave a subtle nod. "I am Captain Jackson Reed," he replied steadily. "I've been assigned to this vessel." The copper woman exchanged looks with her companions, then turned back to him. "I am Solara, First Blade of the Star Warriors. We have awaited a worthy commander since our arrival in your territory." Jackson noted her careful choice of words. "Not, since we were captured, or, since we crashed. There was a story here." "It seems we have something in common," he replied. "I've been waiting for a worthy assignment." A flicker of what might have been approval crossed Solara's face. The obsidian-skinned warrior let out what sounded like a snort of amusement. "The ship is yours to command, Battlemaster Reed," Solara continued, "as are we, provided you prove worthy." Jackson caught the challenge in her words. These weren't subordinates, they were allies at best, potential adversaries at worst. "I look forward to working with all of you," he said, addressing the entire group. "And I'd like to learn your names." The pearl-skinned woman stepped forward. "I am Neva, Second Blade and Navigator." The obsidian warrior with the amused expression followed. "Zara, Third Blade and Tactical Specialist." The iridescent woman moved forward with graceful steps. "Oriana, Fourth Blade and Communications Officer." Finally, the jade-skinned woman with the rigid posture stepped up. "Jenna, Fifth Blade and Weapons Master." Jackson nodded to each in turn, committing their names and roles to memory. "I look forward to learning about this ship and its capabilities." Admiral Donovan cleared his throat. "Captain Reed will be taking full command effective immediately. I'll leave you to get acquainted with your crew." As the Admiral departed, Jackson felt the weight of 5 pairs of alien eyes on him. This was uncharted territory in every sense, a ship of unknown origin, a crew of alien warriors, and a mission with more questions than answers. But for the first time since his demotion, Jackson felt a sense of purpose returning. "Well," he said, turning to face his new crew, "let's start with a tour of my ship." Solara's lips curved in what might have been a smile or a predator's assessment of prey. "As you wish, Battlemaster." First Contact Protocols. Captain Jackson Reed spent his first day aboard the Celestial Vanguard in a state of controlled amazement. The ship's technology was decades, perhaps centuries, beyond anything in the Terran Space Force. Gravity manipulation systems that eliminated inertia during maneuvers, weapons that could target with microscopic precision, propulsion that seemed to bend the laws of physics as humans understood them. But more fascinating than the technology were his 5 new crew members. "These are your quarters, Battlemaster," Solara announced, leading him into a spacious cabin that put his old TSF commander's quarters to shame. The room featured a large viewport, comfortable furnishings, and what appeared to be a small garden of alien plants growing along one wall. It's impressive, Jackson admitted, setting down his meager belongings. The Battlemaster's quarters reflect their status, Jenna stated matter-of-factly, her jade skin almost luminescent under the cabin's lighting. Your predecessor maintained an archive of battle strategies here. Jackson raised an eyebrow. My predecessor. The 5 warriors exchanged glances. Perhaps we should discuss ship operations first, Neva suggested smoothly, her pearl-white skin catching the light as she moved. The tactical systems will require calibration to your neural patterns. Neural patterns? Jackson questioned. Zara, the obsidian-skinned warrior with a perpetual smirk, crossed her arms. Don't worry, Captain. It doesn't hurt much. Zara, Oriana admonished softly, her iridescent features creasing with concern. The human integration process is different. We should explain properly. Jackson crossed his arms, the tactical vest tightening across his chest. I think it's time for some straight answers. What exactly is this ship? Where are you from? And why are you here in Earth space? The 5 warriors fell silent, their exotic eyes studying him with renewed intensity. Finally, Solara stepped forward. The Celestial Vanguard is a Sentinel-class battleship from the Astral Alliance. We are Star Warriors, an elite combat unit assigned to this vessel. Her amber hair seemed to shimmer with its own light as she spoke. As for why we're here, that is complicated. I've got time, Jackson replied dryly. Neva moved to a console and activated a holographic display. A star map appeared, showing systems Jackson didn't recognize. We were on a mission near the Vermilion Nebula when we encountered a spatial anomaly, she explained, her voice serene despite the gravity of her words. Our ship was pulled through what you might call a wormhole. When we emerged, our Battlemaster was gone, and we found ourselves in your solar system. Your commander just vanished? Jackson asked skeptically. Atomized, Jenna confirmed, her rigid posture somehow stiffening further. The transition was not designed for biological entities. Then how did you survive? Zara gestured to their battle suits. Our combat gear isn't just for show, Captain. These suits provide more than just protection. The suits protected you, he surmised. Partially, Oriana added. But it was also the Battlemaster's sacrifice. He activated the emergency protocols, shielding us at the cost of his own life. Jackson nodded slowly, processing this information. And now you need a new commander to operate the ship fully? The Celestial Vanguard requires a Battlemaster, Solara confirmed. Our traditions demand it. The ship's advanced systems are keyed to respond to a commander's neural signature. And you chose me because... We didn't, Jenna stated bluntly. Your military did. But we approved. You have compatible attributes, Zara added with another smirk. Jackson wasn't sure he wanted to know what that meant. What happens now? Now, Solara said, stepping closer to him, we begin the integration process. You must become one with the ship and with us. There was something in her tone, something beyond the professional relationship between a commander and his crew, that made Jackson's pulse quicken. One with the ship, he repeated carefully. The neural link requires physical and mental synchronization, Neva explained, moving to stand beside Solara. It is intimate by your standards. Very intimate, Zara added, her obsidian lips curving into a smile as she joined them. Oriana approached more hesitantly, her iridescent eyes wide. It's a sacred bond among our people. The Battlemaster and the Blades must function as one entity in combat. It is necessary for optimal combat efficiency, Jenna completed the circle around him. Jackson found himself surrounded by the 5 warriors, their exotic beauty and alien presence overwhelming his senses. He'd been in plenty of unusual situations during his military career, but nothing had prepared him for this. This integration, he said, keeping his voice steady. What exactly does it involve? Solara's copper hand reached out, hovering just above his chest. First, we must establish physical compatibility. Our species are similar in many ways, but there are differences that must be harmonized. Harmonized? Jackson echoed, feeling heat rise where her hand nearly touched him. It begins with understanding, Neva said softly. Knowledge of each other's bodies, minds, and spirits. And it's quite enjoyable, Zara added with a wink, for all parties involved. Jackson took a deliberate step back, creating space between himself and the 5 warriors. I think we need to establish some ground rules first. On Earth, commanders don't typically harmonize with their crew. The 5 women exchanged confused glances. How do you establish trust and unity in battle? Jenna asked, genuine puzzlement in her voice. Through training, communication, and professional respect, Jackson answered. Fascinating, Oriana whispered. Their species bonds without physical connection. Sounds inefficient, Zara commented. Solara studied Jackson with newfound interest. Perhaps there is wisdom in your ways, Battlemaster. We have much to learn from each other. Agreed, Jackson said, relieved they weren't pushing the issue. Let's start with something simpler. Show me how the ship operates, and we'll work on building trust through shared knowledge. The tension in the room shifted, transforming from something charged and intimate to something more curious and exploratory. As you wish, Battlemaster, Solara said with a slight bow, though I suspect our methods of building trust will eventually converge. As they led him from his quarters toward the bridge, Jackson couldn't help but wonder what he'd gotten himself into. These women were warriors, yes, but they operated by rules and customs utterly foreign to him. Their concept of command, of unity, of trust, it all seemed to involve a physical intimacy that went far beyond Terran military protocols. Yet he couldn't deny a growing fascination, not just with the ship and its technology, but with these 5 extraordinary beings who now looked to him as their commander. Their strength, their confidence, their alien beauty, all of it called to something primal within him, something that had perhaps been dormant during his years of rigid military service. Whatever this integration process entailed, Jackson suspected his life would never be the same again. 2 days later, Jackson stood in the ship's observation lounge, watching the stars drift by. He'd initiated what he called a cultural exchange program. Each day one crew member would share aspects of their civilization while learning about Earth. The sessions had proven enlightening, revealing both stark differences and surprising similarities between their species. Today's cultural exchange will focus on Astral Alliance bonding rituals, Neva announced, her pearl skin glowing softly in the ship's observation lounge. Jackson settled into his chair, now dressed in a modified version of the standard ship uniform, a black fitted suit with commander's insignia, though he'd insisted on more coverage than his crew typically wore. Bonding rituals? He asked, trying to maintain professional curiosity. Yes, Neva continued, her silver hair cascading over her shoulders as she activated a holographic display. In the Alliance, unity between warriors is considered essential for combat effectiveness. Images appeared showing ceremonial gatherings, training exercises, and what appeared to be meditation circles. Our people believe that true strength comes from harmony between body and mind, between comrades, between commander and crew. Neva's voice took on a reverential quality. The strongest units are those whose members can anticipate each other's thoughts, feel each other's emotions, move as one entity. Jackson nodded. We have similar concepts on Earth. Unit cohesion, team building, trust exercises. But you maintain physical boundaries, Jenna observed from her rigid posture at the edge of the group. This limits potential synchronicity. Physical boundaries serve important functions in human society, Jackson explained. They establish respect, prevent abuse of power, maintain professionalism. Zara stretched languidly, her obsidian battle suit shifting with her movement. Sounds terribly restrictive. How do you express admiration for a fellow warrior's physical prowess? Verbally, Jackson replied with a hint of amusement. Or through competitive sports. Fascinating, Oriana murmured, her iridescent eyes wide with curiosity. Your species separates physical appreciation from combat readiness. Solara, who had been silently observing, finally spoke. Yet in battle, humans show remarkable courage and sacrifice for one another. We've studied your military history. Your warriors die for their comrades without hesitation. That's true, Jackson acknowledged. Then you do form bonds, Solara concluded. Just differently. The observation struck Jackson as profoundly insightful. I suppose we do. Neva continued her presentation, showing more aspects of alliance bonding rituals, shared meals with specific significance, combat dances that looked almost like choreographed martial arts, and meditation techniques that supposedly align neural patterns. The final stage of unit bonding, Neva explained, is the physical harmony ritual. It completes the neural synchronization process. The hologram showed what appeared to be warriors in close physical contact, though the images were abstract enough to leave details to the imagination. This ritual, Jackson asked carefully, is it always intimate by your standards? Yes, Neva admitted. But its purpose is unity, not merely pleasure. Though the pleasure is considerable, Zara added with a wink. Jackson felt heat rise to his face despite his efforts to maintain a professional demeanor. And this is expected of all combat units? Only elite units like ours, Jenna clarified. Standard military forces use simplified bonding techniques. Jackson stood and walked to the viewport, gathering his thoughts as he gazed at the stars. On Earth, intimate relationships between commanders and those under their command are forbidden. It's considered an abuse of power. The 5 warriors exchanged puzzled glances. But we are equals in combat, Solara said, rising to join him at the viewport. Different roles, equal value. The battlemaster leads, Oriana added softly, but each blade contributes uniquely to the whole. Jackson turned to face them. In human military structures, there's a clear chain of command. Power imbalances can lead to exploitation. Ah, Neva said, understanding dawning. You fear taking advantage of us, or being seen as doing so. Jackson confirmed with a nod. Zara laughed, the sound musical and warm. Captain, I assure you, any of us could break you in half if you tried to exploit us. Despite himself, Jackson smiled. Fair point. Perhaps, Solara suggested, moving slightly closer to him, we could find a middle path. One that respects your human boundaries while still building the connection needed for optimal ship function. The air between them seemed to charge with unspoken possibility. Jackson was acutely aware of her proximity, of the subtle scent that reminded him of honey and something alien yet enticing. What did you have in mind? He asked, his voice lower than he intended. We begin with trust exercises familiar to you, Solara proposed. Then gradually incorporate elements of our bonding rituals that you find acceptable. A cultural compromise, Neva added approvingly. Jackson considered the proposal. These women were warriors, proud, capable, and bound by traditions he was only beginning to understand. Dismissing their customs entirely would be disrespectful, yet he couldn't simply abandon his own ethical framework. I'm willing to try, he finally said. But we establish clear boundaries at each step. Agreed, Solara replied, her amber hair seeming to shimmer with approval. When do we start? Oriana asked, her shy enthusiasm evident. No time like the present, Zara suggested with a grin. Jenna, ever practical, moved to the center of the lounge. We should begin with a stance of unity. It requires no physical contact but establishes spatial awareness between warriors. The 5 women formed a perfect pentagon, each assuming a stance that reminded Jackson of martial arts ready positions. Join us, Battlemaster, Solara invited, indicating the center of their formation. Jackson stepped into the pentagon, feeling strangely vulnerable yet protected as the 5 warriors surrounded him. Now, Jenna instructed, close your eyes and become aware of our positions. A battlemaster must sense his blades without seeing them. Jackson complied, shutting his eyes and focusing on his other senses. He could hear their breathing, smell their distinct scents, feel the subtle shifts in air pressure as they moved slightly. Good, Neva's serene voice came from his right. Now we will move, and you must track our positions. For the next hour, they practiced this exercise, the warriors moving silently around him while he identified their locations with increasing accuracy. By the end, Jackson could name each woman's position with remarkable precision, even when they deliberately tried to confuse him. Impressive, Solara acknowledged when they finally ended the session. Your spatial awareness is exceptional for a human. Special Forces training, Jackson explained, surprised at how exhilarated he felt. There was something undeniably intimate about the exercise despite the lack of physical contact. Tomorrow, Neva suggested, perhaps we could try the rhythm of combat, a synchronized movement exercise. I'd like that, Jackson agreed, realizing he genuinely meant it. As they dispersed to their duties, Solara lingered behind. You adapted quickly to our methods, Battlemaster. Jackson, he corrected her. When we're not on duty, you can call me Jackson. A smile curved her copper lips. Jackson, she repeated, the name sounding exotic in her accent. You should know that while we respect your boundaries, we find your human ways intriguing. The implication hung in the air between them. Cultural curiosity, he asked, maintaining eye contact despite the heat rising within him. That, Solara acknowledged. And more. Humans possess a quality we find compelling, a spirit that burns brightly despite your fragile forms. Before he could respond, she turned and left the lounge, leaving Jackson to contemplate this new dimension of their cultural exchange, and the growing awareness that his attraction to these alien warriors might not be one-sided after all.